Welcome to India Tonight. I'm Karan Thapar. Is the Direct Taxes Code Bill a wise and cautious step or a missed opportunity that the government will rue? And if it should have been more radical but isn't, what does this tell us about the government's vision and behavior? That's the debate tonight with Supreme Court lawyer and tax expert Homi P. Ranina, the Vice Chairman of RNRL Anil Singhvi, and the Treasurer of the BJP Rajya Sabha MP Piyush Goyal. Gentlemen, let me first ask you for your overall impressions of the Direct Taxes Code Bill before we come to specific issues within it. First, Mr. Ranina, is it a wise bill or is it a disappointment and a wasted opportunity?
Well, I would not say it's a wasted opportunity. The reason is that they have streamlined the bill. They have put it into very simple language. And at the same time, they have, in a sense, tried to plug in all the loopholes which have resulted in the loss of revenue in the past. So I think it has a very limited objective to raise revenues and at the same time to, in a sense, simplify the law. But they could have done much more in the sense that they could have brought in more reforms into the tax structure, which unfortunately has not happened.
So would your position, Mr. Ranina, be that this is satisfactory as far as it goes, but it could have been and should have been more ambitious, which it isn't?
Absolutely. It is satisfactory as far as it goes. It does give some relief to the small taxpayer. There's no doubt about it. We are much better off today than we were in the last 20 years. But certainly the government could have done much better in making this law more efficient and more oriented towards the requirements of the globalized economy.
Mr. Singhvi, let me quote to you what the Economic Times has said. The paper says, it has failed to end distortions in the tax structure, which is replete with exemptions, or build a new tax law embodying the principle of low taxes on the broadest possible base. And then the paper adds, political expediency has prevailed over economic logic, missing an opportunity to reform direct tax laws. Would you agree with the Economic Times, or are they being a bit unfair?
Karan, I have my own views and let me express them very clearly. First of all, income tax can never be a simplified law. Nowhere in the globe income tax is a simplified law. So most of the time what you are trying to achieve by bringing an income tax law is to tax certain income which may be escaping taxation. That's the first presumption, which is one can debate right or wrong, but there's a first premise on this. Second issue is that this is the 50th year. We will be completing 50 years next year of the 1961 Act. So very cynically I might say that since it was introduced on 1st April 1962, and that's why we are saying 1st April 2012, to have completed 50 years of legislation of Income Tax Act 61. So there was a huge opportunity within the lawmakers to see that how we have progressed in last 50 years and whether the Income Tax Act has really kept the pace with which India has progressed. I think it has failed to that extent completely to capture where we are likely to be.
Mr. Goyal,
because this piece of legislation, to my mind, should at least be there with us for next 10-15 years. May not be 50 years the way the 61, whether it helped or otherwise, but
okay,
definitely it was there for us with 50 years.
Mr. Goyal, the aim, the government says, is to create legislation that will actually last for 50 years. You've just heard Mr. Singhvi say even if it lasts 10-15 would be adequate, but do you think this Direct Taxes Code Bill has the potential to even last for a decade?
I personally don't think so. In fact, I feel very sad that the opportunity that the government had has been lost. It was a great move on the part of the government, a very welcome move. They wanted to simplify the law. They wanted to bring down the tax levels. They wanted to increase the base of taxation, the base of taxpayers.
And would you say they failed on all those different
I think
counts?
Unfortunately, even while the original draft of the DTC did attempt to achieve some of these objectives, the watered down version that has been introduced in Parliament yesterday, I think they have lost a great opportunity. Some more radical reform. I mean, simplification in language, as my colleague said, is very true. but some more radical reform would have been more welcome.
All right, gentlemen, let's come to the details. First, Mr. Ranina, how do you respond to the new proposed exemption limit and the new tax slabs? Compared to what was proposed in August, are you disappointed, or do you believe that the August proposals of 2009 were actually unrealistic?
No, I think the August proposals of 2009 were in fact necessary, in my opinion. We should have adhered to those exemption limits and to those higher slabs, which would have put India on the global map and made us comparable to what other countries in the world charge by way of tax. So I do believe that August 2009 was the right step, but then the government said they are going to lose revenue and therefore they have watered it down. I think it's very unfortunate that this has happened.
So do you think the government lost courage at the last moment?
It's not lost courage, it's just that they just want to raise more resources and they feel that this is the one way by which they don't want to forego the revenue. I think that's the only reason. There's no question of courage involved.
All right. It sounds as if it was greed. Mr. Singhvi, what about the corporate tax proposals? Once again, the August 2009 proposal was to cut it down to just 25%. What they've actually done is to simply remove the cess and charge, but leave the tax rate at 30. Would you say all they've done is to tinker about but not really reform?
Karan, I might sound cynical here, but I don't think we have really changed dramatically from 1961 Act. I think it's a little bit of a different way, as I often believe that even there have been several budgets where we have changed the income tax or a lot of provisions. So I don't think the new direct tax code is anyway different than what could have been achieved or what has been achieved in past from the budgetary provisions of finance bill. Having said this, I think the two provisions which were really very draconian from my point of view was that MAT, which was based on assets, which has been now again reintroduced or been kept in the same manner in which it was earlier, which is to do with the profit before tax, and a certain % of that is to be given. Secondly, on the long-term capital gains, I think these are the two paramount situations where we were shifting away from the 61 to bring it into direct tax code which was introduced then. I think both have been retained. To that extent, I think we are on a right path rather than tinkering it with asset base, which would have been a disastrous situation for a country like India where we have to create so much of assets.
Let me, Mr. Goyal, quote to you what Pranab Mukherjee told reporters just a couple of days ago. He says the whole objective is that a plethora of exemptions will be limited. Do you really believe that he's done away with the exemptions and that the proposed direct taxes code is in fact a simple, clean and clear law to promote compliance?
I think the finance minister and the government came under pressure from industry and all sorts of people, and they have finally reintroduced most of the exemptions. So what they've managed to do is maybe remove leave travel concession from the exemptions. Small tinkering has been done. But the big picture, the objective of reducing exemptions, reducing the tax rates and making it a much more simplified format, that has been lost. I don't see many exemptions have gone. They've tinkered a little bit like they used to do in the finance bill every year. They could jolly well have achieved this through the budgetary provision, as Singhvi ji
They
said.
could have achieved it through a budgetary provision. There was really no need to dress it up as a direct taxes code bill. Mr. Ranina, let's pick up on the point that you heard Mr. Singhvi make when he praised the government for having retained the long-term capital tax exemption. In fact, the government has even gone a step beyond that. Even the short-term capital gains tax has been reduced for 2 out of 3 tax brackets. But on the other hand, the Economic Times says that this is a violation of the principle of ending open-ended tax exemptions. Do you agree with Mr. Singhvi, or do you agree with the Economic Times criticism?
Well, let me put it this way. As far as the capital market is concerned, the long-term capital gains exemption has been of great benefit. But if you ask me as an individual, I mean, whether it is really justified, it's very doubtful, because you are giving a tax-free amount to a person who has done nothing to earn it. If you work hard, you have to pay tax at the rate of 30% on income over 10 lakhs. But if you just sit at home and earn long-term capital gains, it's completely exempt from tax. So on general principles, it's not fair, it's not equitable, it's not right. But if you just want to boost the stock market, the capital market, make things easy, put Indian investors on par with FIIs, foreign institutional investors who go to the Mauritian route, then of course it can be justified.
So would you sum it up by saying that this is morally possibly improper, but from the point of view of the stock market and investment, efficacious? Is that how you sum it up?
Yes, this is how I would sum it up.
Mr. Singhvi, another change between the August 2009 proposals and the actual direct tax code bill is that the proposal to tax savings at the point of withdrawal, including provident fund,
To earn it, if you work hard, you have to pay tax at the rate of 30% on income over 10 lakhs. But if you just sit at home and earn long-term capital gains, it's completely exempt from tax. So on general principles, it's not fair, it's not equitable, it's not right. But if you just want to boost the stock market, the capital market, make things easy, put Indian investors on par with FIIs, foreign institutional investors who go to the Mauritian route, then of course it can be justified.
So would you sum it up by saying that this is morally possibly improper, but from the point of view of the stock market and investment, efficacious? Is that how you sum it up?
Yes, this is how I would sum it up.
Mr. Singhvi, another change between the August 2009 proposals and the actual direct tax code bill is that the proposal to tax savings at the point of withdrawal, including provident fund, has been withdrawn and done away with. Do you applaud that decision, or do you think that was an error?
Well, Karan, I think at the end of the day, one must think that how we are going to, as I mentioned to you, that any piece of legislation, and particular of income tax nature, should be capturing the imagination of the people of this country. And to very large extent, we still want to keep saving rates very high. And for a salaried class, since there are no other options available, I think to very large extent, I'm in agreement with that it should be EEE. And I think to that extent, I'm happy that government has retained this whole premise of it, that this will boost savings, and we need savings for capital formation. So I'm quite, in fact, let me put it the other way around. We have given exemptions to software companies for last 20 years, right from 91. So it's been 20 years that we are having software industry, which is last 20 years has been the hallmark of our economy, has been completely exempted. So I see nothing wrong if we give this incentive to the savers that save and have a capital formation in the country.
All right, one area, Mr. Goyal, where the government has had the guts and courage to reserve a traditional previous exemption is that they've withdrawn the preferential treatment for women. They've retained it for senior citizens, but that is an internationally accepted principle applied almost the world over. Do you agree with their argument that in the interest of promoting gender equality, there is really no case for giving women preferential tax treatment, particularly when they do the same job and earn the same salary as a man?
No, I completely and totally disagree with this. I think the exemption given to women at a slightly preferred rate was very appropriate. In this country, we are agitating in Parliament to get women's reservation bill and preferential treatment for women in Parliament. It's all because the women over the years in India have not yet matured to a situation that you can get complete gender equality. So I think if women were given a little extra benefit, it was absolutely right. There is a gender inequality in our employment. There is a gender inequality in opportunities available to women. And then they are positively
Can I put it like this? You have two leaders of the opposition, one a man, one a woman. They do the same job. They probably get the same salary. Should Sushma Swaraj really legitimately pay less tax?
I don't think it's a question of Sushma Swaraj. We are taking one
No, I'm
example.
just using it as an example.
Yeah, but if you look at...
But surely the principle is established at the extreme point. Is it defensible that two people doing the same job, getting the same salary, under the same pressure, but one of them being a woman should pay less tax?
I think it's defensible because the women are discriminated with at the point of their income level itself.
All right. Let's then, gentlemen, take a break at that point. Let's come back and ask the big question that perhaps underlies this discussion. What does the Direct Taxes Code Bill reveal of the government's behavior and, more importantly, of its vision, or as some might say, its lack of vision? That's in a moment's time. See you after the break.